Have you ever thought about this? A famous teacher who gets up in front of a crowd and tells stories that are designed to confuse most of the people listening. I mean, it sounds completely backward, right? Why would you teach by being intentionally unclear? Well, that is the exact puzzle we're going to try and unlock today. And look, this isn't just me guessing. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus' own students pull him aside and ask him this very question. And his answer? It's pretty startling. He says he speaks in parables so that some people will see and hear, but they won't understand. So what is going on here? To get to the bottom of this, we're going to dive into the exact story that got everyone so confused in the first place, the parable of the sower. On the surface, it's a really simple story, about farming, seeds, different kinds of dirt. But as you're about to see, the secret isn't really in the story itself. It's in how you're supposed to listen to it. So yeah, the puzzle really kicks off with the disciples themselves being totally baffled. They go right up to Jesus and ask, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" The very fact that they had to ask tells you there's something much deeper going on here. Okay, this right here is the first key to unlocking the whole thing. If the goal was just to, download information into people's brains, Jesus would have just given a lecture. But a parable does something totally different. It's not a straightforward how-to manual. It's more like an invitation. The theologian T.F. Torrance, he just nails it. He says, a parable throws a man into the crisis of decision. It makes you step into the story, find yourself in one of the characters, and then it forces you to make a choice. It doesn't tell you what to think. It makes you decide who you are. It's interactive. So if we want to understand this interactive style of teaching, we need to get the mental toolkit that Jesus' original audience had. Without it, honestly, we're missing most of the message. This piece of the puzzle is absolutely crucial. When Jesus quotes the prophet Isaiah saying, "The people hearing, they do not hear," he's not talking about an audio problem. In the Hebrew way of thinking, to hear is to obey. They are linked. So they heard the words with their ears, sure, but they were refusing to act. The failure wasn't in their ears, it was in their will. See, back in the first century, if you were a student of a rabbi, you knew the deal. A teaching wasn't something you just passively consumed. No way. It was a starting point for a journey, an investigation. You were expected to dig, to search, to connect the dots. And it turns out they had a specific 4-level framework to guide them in that search. And that framework has a name. It's called Pardes. It's this ancient Jewish method for going deeper and deeper into scripture and teachings. The best way to think about it is like an archaeological dig. You've got 4 distinct layers you have to uncover to get to the treasure. So first, you've got the peshat, which is just the simple surface meaning. Then you dig a little and you find a remez, a hidden hint. And that hint, it leads you to the drash, a deeper inquiry where you start connecting this text to others. And finally, if you're open to it, you might be given the sod, the divine secret, the real revelation. Okay, so level 1, peshat. This is the simple story right on the surface. For our parable, it's a farmer throwing seeds. Easy. Anyone can see it. It's the obvious, literal meaning you get just by brushing the dust off the top. Now, this is where the real work begins. A remez is a clue, a specific word or a phrase that the rabbi intentionally plants in the story. It's kind of like finding a unique piece of pottery at your dig site that acts as a key to a hidden map that points you back to a passage in the Hebrew scriptures. And drash, well, that's the act of actually following that map. You take the hint you found, the remez, you go back to that older text it pointed to, and you start searching for all the meaningful connections. This is how you discover the bigger picture, the deeper lesson the rabbi's trying to build. And finally, you get to sod, the treasure itself. Now, this isn't something you find just through hard work or being clever. This is that aha moment, that personal revelation that just clicks. It feels like a gift, not something you achieved on your own. Okay, so we have the key, we have our 4-level decoder ring. Now, let's use this framework to unlock the parable of the sower and see what we've been missing all this time. Right after telling the parable, Jesus uses this very specific phrase, understanding with the heart. Now, for his Jewish students, this would have been a massive clue, like a flashing neon sign. This is the remez. This is the hint pointing them back to that treasure map in the Old Testament. And where does that map lead? Well, among other places, it leads directly to the book of Proverbs, which talks about making your ear attentive to wisdom and
Yep, there it is, inclining your heart to understanding. Jesus is deliberately, intentionally linking his brand new parable to this ancient teaching about wisdom.
And here is the absolute game changer. That phrase, inclining your heart, it's not some soft emotional phrase. It's a Hebrew idiom. It means committing yourself to the hard work of understanding. See, to the Jewish mind, the heart wasn't about feelings. It was the seat of your intellect and your will. This is all about making a decision to roll up your sleeves and dig deeper. Well, this changes everything, doesn't it? If the key to the whole story is about the listener's commitment to understand, then maybe we've been focusing on the wrong part of the story this whole time. And this leads us to the big twist in what the parable actually means. With all of this context, let's just ask the question directly. We call it the parable of the sower. But is this sower really the main character here? So the common way to read this is that it's all about the sower, right? It's a lesson on going out and spreading the message. But the internal clue, that heavy emphasis on understanding with the heart, it points us somewhere completely different. The parable isn't actually about the sower, it's about the soil. It's about how the message is received.
And the best part is, we don't even have to guess about this. When Jesus explains the parable to his disciples, he confirms it himself. He doesn't say, the sower is like this. No. He says again and again, as for what was sown, this is the one who. He literally identifies the different types of soil as the real characters in the story.
And these 4 soils, well, they represent 4 different ways people respond to his teaching. You've got the path, where the listener just doesn't get it. The rocky ground, where there's that initial excitement but no deep root. The thorny ground, where all the worries of the world just choke out the message. And finally, the good soil, the one who hears, understands, and actually bears fruit. So in the end, the secret of the parable is that it isn't a command. It's a mirror. It was designed to get past the defenses of an audience that thought they had it all figured out and force them to look at themselves. It's not just telling you to go out and sow. It's looking you right in the eye and asking a much more personal, much more challenging question. Which soil are you?